we're all going to go through tough times or whatever it is in our life. If you've never been there before, you can't handle it. You don't know how to react. You just melt down.
Welcome to the Mountain Tough Podcast, brought to you by Sig Sauer. What is up, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of the Mountain Tough Podcast. I am Dustin Diefenderfer, CEO of Mountain Tough, and I'm so glad that you are here listening to these episodes week after week. It is our goal to bring you an inspiring guest every single time that helps you level up, that helps you add some mental tools to that mental fitness toolbox so that you can stay dangerous, so that you can live an abundant, virtuous life under the always ready lifestyle. If you are a new or a loyal listener, and this is your first time to the show, or if you've been a listener for a while, it does mean the world to us to see your rankings and reviews come through. So if you have a second to leave a ranking or review on the podcast store of your choice, those help a ton. Iron sharpens iron, so we love seeing your feedback. We love seeing ways that we can improve. We love seeing guest recommendations. And through the algorithm, the rankings and the reviews do allow these episodes to get out to more people, to transform more lives. Couple announcements on the Mountain Tough front. If you have not heard about the Tough Sheep workout in Reno, Nevada this upcoming January for the Wild Sheep Foundation Sheep Show, I highly encourage you to get registered for Tough Sheep. Tough Sheep is going to be the best odds on the planet to win a Dall sheep hunt. For many years, the best odds on the planet to win an all expenses paid sheep hunt were the Less Than One Club. But with the Tough Sheep workout, it's going to be a Mountain Tough workout at Wild Sheep Foundation Sheep Show in Reno, Nevada this upcoming January. It has a 500 person max. So you don't have to win the workout to win the Dall sheep hunt, but you have to be at the workout, in the workout, to be drawn for the Dall sheep hunt. So 1 out of 500, someone is going to walk away from Tough Sheep with an all expense paid trip. This is one of the best Dall sheep tags in the country. So I highly encourage you to make sure you get registered for that before that sells out. It will sell out very quickly. Also, as a listener of the Mountain Tough podcast, if you did not know, you do get 6 weeks for free on the Mountain Tough app. All you need to do is just use the code MOUNTAINPOD. So go to mountaintough.com, click Start Free Trial, enter the code MTNPOD, all one word, all caps. That's going to get you 6 weeks of free training on Mountain Tough Plus, where you can see all of our content, all of our programs. That's physical, mental, spiritual, nutritional. You can be in there for the 30 days, a whole month, plus the 14-day free trial for 6 weeks. Shifting over to today's guest. Today's guest is Bellator Heavyweight Champion Ryan Bader. We are going to sit down today and dive into his wrestling career, into his fighting career, and all the tough lessons he learned to get where he is today. He burned the ships, and we're going to dive into that today. Burning the ships allowed him to live and create the life he wanted, and it definitely has led to his success. Even though it hasn't always been easy, it led him down the right path. We talk about burning the ships all the time at Mountain Tough, so this is a great episode to reinforce that point. He also is a passionate hunter. We're going to get into that, and he's doing a lot, giving back through hunting to the veteran community, taking out some veterans every single year. So stand by for my conversation with Ryan Bader. So where did you grow up at?
So I was born in northern Idaho, but we grew up in Reno, Nevada. We moved down to Reno when I was about 3 years old.
Okay.
So basically kind of grew up in the mountains outside of Reno and, wrestled, played football, involved in athletics, and then all the outdoor hunting, fishing, all that kind of stuff. And wrestled year round, and then had kind of some opportunities for wrestling and football out of high school. and I ended up choosing to go to Arizona State University to wrestle.
And did you notice like right away when you were young that it was something that you were naturally kind of gifted at, or was it more of a scenario where it was a tremendous amount of hard work to get to that level?
So I felt like I was naturally gifted at football, but wrestling was a different story. You have kids that, their parents wrestled or whatnot, and they have them in there when they're, 4.5 years old, and, learning the techniques and all that. And then I started wrestling around 7 years old, and it's a little
Mm-hmm.
learning curve, when you have kids that are wrestling year round and they have, 3+ years on you already, but that was the one that you had to put in the work, the wrestling
Mm-hmm.
side of it. And we did, and wrestling kind of became my sport, as far as pretty much did it year round. There's a couple months there where they don't have any freestyle or folk style tournaments and all that. So we'd move, freestyle season right into a folk style season, and you had regionals and all that kind of stuff, and outside your own state. And so that's the one I had to work hard at, and I
Mm-hmm.
did. And then by the time I was, 11, 12, I was right there at the top. But that
Did
one
you?
was the one. Football was fun for me. I would just show up. Nowadays kids have their, personal coach, their season coach, or have their, quarterback coach, off season, this and that. I just showed up there. I was tough. I wasn't overly big, but with my wrestling, that transferred over. As a linebacker and all that stuff. So
Just
that helped me
show
out with
up.
football a lot. But the
Just
wrestling
show up.
one was the sport that I really had to work at for sure. And then that's a sport where you can't be a seasoned athlete. You have to do that year round.
And did you have siblings?
I had a younger sister.
Okay.
Yep.
And what? In your was your household one that was like promoting that work ethic?
Oh, 100%. So my dad, I mean, he wrestled in high school and all that. He was okay. But I just remember kind of growing up. My dad had a construction company, and we had kind of no days off. We weren't like hanging out with friends on the weekend. My dad would just go, go, go. We'd wake up and do whatever. Then he'd be looking at the house, be like, I think we need to reside the house. And then every weekend we were doing some kind of project.
Yeah.
And yeah, my family's still together. We're all real close, but there was never idle time growing up in my household. We'd be doing that. We were big into hunting and fishing outdoors as kids, so we'd be doing that in hunting season, all that kind of stuff. And yeah, I just remember growing up, there was never a time when we were like sitting on the couch watching TV, like, at all.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny because in Bozeman where we're located, it's kind of trendy right now for kids on spring break to go to these like crazy Caribbean places. And I always joke around that my dad was a lot like your dad. We
Mm,
just did projects nonstop. So
yeah,
every spring break, he'd come downstairs to my sister and I, and he'd be like, "You're staying in the deck. I got a power washer." So like
yeah.
every spring break, we would just restain our deck. There's no trips or vacations or anything.
The exact same thing. It's funny. I'm like, I think we got everything done, right? Now there'll be something else.
Yeah. So was it a big culture shock to go to Arizona State University? How was that transition?
Yeah, I went to Oregon
Okay.
on a because I had a offer for a full scholarship to wrestle up there, and I went up there and immediately was like, nope, not my style, right? And then I went a couple other trips. I came down to ASU and met a bunch of the wrestlers on the team, even the coaches, and we were all kind of like-minded people. And then they walked me down. We have this palm walk down here. It's a big, in the middle of the university, um, big walkway lined by palm trees, and they do that, for a reason. They bring you down there, and there's hundreds and hundreds of the best looking women you've ever seen in little tiny booty shorts. And you're like, oh, okay, not bad. But I love the culture down here in Arizona. And, I met some of my best friends to this day, from that. And so I decided to come down to ASU. And so in August, when it's time to come down, my parents drove me down from Reno, Nevada, showed up at the dorms. It was 118 degrees that day while we're moving in the dorms. I'm like, oh shit, what did I do?
Oh man. Yeah.
Yeah. And then getting into that right away, we had a new head coach and he had something to prove. And so, I mean, we were the track team, the swim team, everything team. He just beat us down for that. I would say the first month they try to get all the walk-ons to quit because they need just a certain amount of guys. So
Yeah.
it was definitely hell a little bit in coming in from a high school kid, good high school wrestler to a college program, and I redshirted my first year too. So, but I proved myself pretty quickly, beating up on the starting 197 pounder. And then just kind of went from there.
And how was your career there, your wrestling career?
It was good. I was a 3-time Pac-10 champion and then 2-time All-American. And my sophomore year, I was ranked number 1 in the country at one point. Yeah.
That's amazing.
And, that year I ended up getting 3rd or 4th. I almost made it to the finals. And this guy, Damian Hahn from Minnesota, he's a legend in the wrestling world. And it was, I was down by 1. I almost had him turned, and just ran out of seconds basically. But yeah, I enjoyed that, and wrestling is, it's a different mentality. Wrestlers are all different people, different kinds of people, and that's why I think they do well when they transition over to MMA.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so common to see great wrestlers transition to MMA and do really well.
Yeah.
But before we go into MMA, at this stage of your life, coming from childhood into college age, through those years, how much do you think you were thinking about mental toughness and how mental toughness was making you great?
I mean, mental toughness, it's always been a part of my life, and I believe you kind of learn, some individuals kind of just have it no matter what. But then you learn, from the people around you, whether that was my dad, my other training partners or family members or whatever it is, So I had to be mentally tough since I was a kid throughout my life. And I think sports is a really good place to find that, let alone wrestling, And I think growing up, doing that, and then there's times when, like a hunting story where we were kind of trapped out in the desert in northern Nevada. My uncle shot a sheep and we ran out of water. We had to stay the night, and that whole deal, and had heat exhaustion, and we finally got out, and and then I just kept going back to like, wrestling practice where you couldn't get water back in the day, all that kind of stuff. Or like, we're good. And so I think I've always just been exposed to having to be mentally tough. And so it's never a thing. You just did it.
Yeah. You've been exposed to a lot of hard things and just doing them over and over again and all those cumulative experiences.
Yeah, 100%.
And what led you to the season of life of going into MMA? How did that transition happen?
Yeah, so on our ASU wrestling team, we ended up having like 7 guys from just our little class that at one point or another ended up in the UFC. We had Cain Velasquez, former UFC heavyweight champion. He was our heavyweight. I was a 197 pounder. CB Dalloway, was our 185 pounder. Aaron Simpson was our assistant coach, upperweight coach, all did very well in the UFC.
Yeah.
And for me, I was wrestling, since I was a little kid, and I was wrestling year round. And you get burnt out pretty quick with wrestling, but I was like, hey, this is what I do. In college, all my friends are going on spring break. I'm getting ready for nationals,
You're working.
And senior year, I was like, all right. My junior year, I actually did not All-American, and it hurt quite a bit. And senior year, I was like, hey, I'm not going to bring that mentality into my senior year. My junior year, I was kind of over it. I wasn't, I was kind of like,
Burnt
whatever,
out. Yeah.
And my senior year, I came in and my coach actually sat me down and he was like, hey, you need to get back to winning like 4-3, 2-1. Because if I wasn't up by 4 or 5, I'd start doing dumb things, and then get in a bad position. So I went back to that, just, going out there and just winning, and not worrying about, oh, score's close. I need to try something, so I ended up All-American that year also. And then I was like, all right, I'm done. What am I going to do now? I worked for my dad's construction company in the summers, and I was an athlete. So I was like, I need to get some, put myself out there. It's not what I want to do, but I want to get like a year of work experience, doing something that I totally don't want to do, which was like sales, right?
Yeah.
So Cain Velasquez knew he wanted to fight right away. He literally was done with nationals, and then 2 months later, he had a fight down in Mexico. The guy didn't show up, whatever. But he knew he wanted to go in right away. I was kind of thinking about it. I'm like, oh, it's an option, but I've been an athlete my whole life. Maybe I could do something else. And then a couple other guys were going in, and I was like, you know what? I'm going to go in and I'm going to train a little bit just to keep in shape, maybe learn a little bit. And I realized I was actually pretty good. I'm beating guys that are currently in the UFC, and I don't even know what I'm doing. I'm just using my wrestling.
Just in training.
Just training, right? So I'm like, all right. And I kind of knew I would try at least one. And then I'm doing my my sales job at the same time, right? And I got pulled into an office by the manager, and they're like, hey, you're doing really good. If you keep this up in like 3 years, you can maybe be a sales manager or a training manager. And I hated our training manager. And I was like,
sounds terrible.
Yeah, that's what I have to look forward to. I'm like I'm busting my ass and I can get to be a training manager. I was like, So I was just kind of going through the motions. And at that point, I'm like, I'm going to, try this fighting thing at least once. And I go out, I get a fight. The guy's like, we show up at weigh-ins, everybody's nervous, right? He's like 190 pounds. We're fighting at 205.
Yeah.
So I feel a little better. I'm like, all right. I watch him hit mitts in the back, and at this point, it's foreign to me. I'm about to fight another man in a cage.
Yeah, and striking's pretty new.
I've just been learning a couple months, and he's hitting. You can see through the curtain in the warm-ups, and he's hitting pads. Doesn't look that great. And he had all long hair and stuff, and his ponytail whipped him in the eye. And he's like down on his knee, and I'm like, I'm good. Walk out there. It's kind of like, holy shit, what am I doing? Right? And then
in a cage.
Bell rang. I went out there, and it was like playing with my younger sister. I was throwing him around, just beating him up. And at that point, you're like, I'm the best fighter ever, win that fight. And just from wrestling alone. So I was like, all right, that kind of gave me like, maybe I should pursue this a little bit.
Was that a UFC fight or?
No, it was like we were
just
on an Indian reservation in Arizona.
Nice.
Yeah, because in UFC, you have to build your record up and all that. So, still working at a job, and then we had a sponsor that came in and was like, hey, we'll pay you monthly, quit your job. And I'm like, all right, how much is it? And they're like, we'll give you $1,500 a month. And I was like, ugh.
To fight.
Can I survive on that,
Yeah.
And so anyway, so I go, all right. And I'm thinking, I'm like, now's the time. I'm not married. I don't have kids. I'm like, that's the time you make that leap and say, all right. I didn't want to look back and be like, woulda, coulda, shoulda. I would have been great at that. I should have taken that opportunity. So I did. And like I was saying, you can't just jump into the big leagues, right? You got to put in your time. And so, I was scraping by, training full time, racking up credit card debt, and yeah, I think I was like $7,000 on my credit card, before I actually made it to the UFC. I had 5
making
fights.
1,500 a month.
Yeah, I had 5 fights, and then my buddy went on the Ultimate Fighter TV show with UFC in season 7, and he was putting in a good word because they were looking for like high level wrestlers and all that. So I went in and we just interviewed. I didn't have to try out, and they were just making fun of my buddy the whole time, and I was talking shit. And they were like, they called me back and they're like, "All right, go get your medicals. You're in." So I go on the Ultimate Fighter, and then end up winning that, and just kind of went from there. Then my stint in the UFC started.
Hey guys, I just wanted to take a second and talk to you about nutrition and supplementation. There are a plethora of options when it comes to supplements that can be kind of overwhelming, so I wanted to let you guys know what I do take. So in the mornings, I am taking the Mountain Ops greens and the collagen right when I wake up, and that has been a game changer. I don't eat a lot of vegetables throughout the day, so adding those greens in the morning is quick and efficient, and I can really feel the collagen. In addition, I do enhance my workouts. My Mountain Tough training sessions are quite difficult, and so I do like to take the Enduro. It gives you a cardio enhancement that you can actually feel, and then I also like a little caffeine with my workout, so I'm taking the Mountain Ops Ignite. Lastly, it's really important that you are getting enough protein and recovering after these difficult sessions. What I do know is even following a strict whole foods diet, I'm not getting nearly enough protein on most days unless I take a supplement. So I do take the Mountain Ops protein after my workout to make sure that I'm hitting about 1 gram per body weight for a functional athlete. So taking the Mountain Ops protein with some creatine after my workouts has been huge. Those are the products I am taking and that I recommend. The Mountain Ops team is giving Mountain Tough podcast show listeners an exclusive discount to their products. It is a great deal. So for a first-time purchase on mountainops.com, you do get 20% off. All you need to do is go to mountainops.com and then use the code MountainTough at checkout. That's MTNTOUGH, all caps, all one word. Apply that as your promo code at checkout, and you're going to get 20% off your first order. You've been listening to the Mountain Tough podcast. That's insane. It's insane to me, especially coming from a wrestling background, how you can do well so fast with all the striking involved in MMA.
Yeah.
Do you think that was related to MMA being relatively newer and striking wasn't as sophisticated, or is wrestling just that critical to being successful?
Yeah, a little bit, but there's still like good strikers out there. In MMA, you don't have to look pretty. There's small gloves, big guys. I think what wrestlers bring to the table is they can kind of dictate where the fight goes, right? If I'm out there and you're worried about my wrestling and I'm throwing little feints in like I'm going to take you down, and you're reacting and you're dropping your hands and all that, it just takes one to connect. So that even now it's a big part of my game, my feints.
Yeah.
And then I need to trick you basically just to get my hands, my fist on your chin. So I think that's a big key factor. In first, like probably 10 fights, I was pure instinct going in there, and just your body goes back to what it's wrestling. And you get on the ground, that's the easy part, right? You just punch that guy. There's no technique. There's little techniques, but that's where you can wrestlers really shine. And I was really kind of developing my striking, in the deep waters of the UFC. I was trying to get better. And first 10 fights was all instinct. And then finally I was fighting, I think, Rashad Evans, where everything kind of slowed down and I could anticipate, I could, see what was going on. It wasn't just a,
chaos,
blackout go and what happened at the end of the fight,
Yeah. I got the chance to go to that UFC 300 and watch that Gaethje Holloway fight.
Oh yeah.
And it was really interesting to me because those are two strong grapplers, and they stood up and struck the whole entire fight. They never went down to the ground.
Yeah, 100%. Some guys are like that too. They want to put on a show, it's entertainment at the end of the day too. And they're like, all right, it's a huge card. Let's put on a show for the fans,
Yeah. What about the differences between wrestling and jiu-jitsu? Is what's going on kind of with that dynamic in terms of being successful?
Yeah, I think, having a strong wrestling background and then coming in, it's pretty easy for a wrestler to, honestly, what they need the most is like submission defense, right? Because they're going to have the positioning. And that's huge in MMA too. The positioning, keep the position, and then you can ground and pound. You can, look for a submission if you want, whatever. But it's a totally different mentality. And if you ask any jiu-jitsu people, and granted, I'm a black belt in BJJ also, but ask any jiu-jitsu guy, and they're like, if a college wrestler comes in, they're like, oh shit. Right? Because they're just going, they have one speed,
Yeah.
So I think that's a different mentality where jiu-jitsu, you're kind of like flowing, looking for your opportunities. And so if you get a good wrestler that actually dives in and has an open mind and learns jiu-jitsu the right way, that's a very, very dangerous man.
Dangerous combination.
Yeah.
Well, I want to keep going through your story, but I do want to pause for a second because it's so awesome because you highlighted like essentially the burn the ships moment where you could have stayed in that sales job.
See that tattoo right there?
Yeah.
That's a burning ship.
That's awesome. Because you did it with that sales job. I mean, you could have stayed there. And I feel like a lot of times the majority of guys would have stayed there because they would have had too much fear, too much insecurity, too much doubt.
Yep.
And they would have never taken that leap of faith of living off $1,500 a month. And then they would have most likely gone down a season of not feeling great because they would have been in a job that they hate.
Exactly.
And then just dealing with all those regrets. But you taking that leap was awesome.
Yeah, my whole deal is like, I can't live a boring life. I tell my wife, like, you got to walk the dog. Like, I can't just hang out. And I can maybe for a couple of days, and that doesn't matter where we're at, but I got to do something, and for me, I never wanted to live what you call like a boring life, have a job that I have to go to Monday through Friday that I hate, and then maybe, go do my passion, whatever it is, on one day on the weekend or once a month or something like that. And all you're looking forward to is your 2 days off that you get and your, allotted vacation time. That's just not for me. It never has been, and so I think that's a huge thing in life is like, if you're miserable, and I get it, there's different circumstances with kids and all that, and you got to provide for them, but you have to at some point bet on yourself and make that leap. Because if you don't, you're going to be 65 years old being like, what happened? You're not satisfied and you're unfulfilled and you have a bad marriage because you're miserable and she's miserable and the whole deal.
Yeah. And I think even what I've seen when you make that decision, like, hey, I got a college degree, I got the sales job, I'm going to leave and go do this crazy thing.
Yeah.
You have to fight through a lot of, your whole entire family is going to probably tell you you're an idiot.
Yeah.
Your circle of friends a lot of times are going to tell you you're an idiot. And you got to just put all that stuff aside, like when you know that calling is in your heart, and just go for it.
Yeah, I had different opportunities too. I I had it in at law school here because what do you do when you're like, you don't know what to do. You're like, oh, maybe I should go to law school. And because of my wrestling deal, because I majored in is like criminal justice and kind of law, then minored in business. So I was like, well, maybe that's what I should do. And then you know, and I could have, and people around me know I could have, and then you're like, I'm gonna go fight other men in a cage. Like,
on Indian reservations. Yeah.
And now, like I told my parents always knew I'm wired like that. And so they weren't too surprised. With like my grandparents were like, what are you doing? But now that they're texting me, they're like, hey, did you watch that fight last night? It's pretty funny.
Yeah, they come around eventually.
Yeah.
So let's kind of keep working our way through your career a little bit, going from Ultimate Fighter into the next phase.
Yeah. So, you win the Ultimate Fighter, then you feel like you're at the top of the world, but then you're on the lower rung of the deep UFC, right?
Mm-hmm.
And from there, I mean, you're taking fights, what they give you, and so I went on a good run then, and had a few losses in there, fought John Jones, I was undefeated. He was undefeated. He went and got a title shot after that. And I was always like a in the early part of top 10 guy. And then there's a point where I was in the top 5 for forever, and went on good win streaks, have a few losses in there. And then I had like five fights that I won in a row and wanted a title shot. And then I ended up fighting Anthony Johnson. And in that fight, I didn't psych myself out, but I made a mistake like really early. We had a plan. We were going to go in there and take him down eventually, this and that. But I went and took him down. He's a big knockout guy. I went in there and took a bad shot early when that wasn't our plan, and I felt different before that fight mentally, this and that. And I ended up losing. And after that, I was like, all right, I never want to feel that way that I felt in the locker room just after that fight. It was horrible.
Yeah.
Experience, mindset, all that kind of stuff. And so every fight since then, in the locker room, whatever, I go back to that place and think like, we're not going to go there.
Yeah.
Like, you
I don't
owe it
want
to
that
yourself.
feeling.
You put in too much work to not go out there and be 100% mentally there, And so I had 20 fights in UFC. I knew what I could get elsewhere, contract wise. And so we ended up, we had one fight on our contract, and they usually don't let you fight that fight without signing a new contract. But a short notice fight came to fight Nogueira in Brazil. I was signing the contract, and they're like, oh yeah, we got to sign a new one. And we're like, we're not going to sign a new contract,
Dang.
So anyway, so we ended up taking a contract from Bellator, then they didn't match, and then we moved on to Bellator from there. And my deal was like, I wanted to have a shot at a title. That didn't happen in UFC. I was right there.
Yeah.
Got it. So I went over to Bellator. I was going to fight this guy, King Mo, another really good wrestler. That fell off, and I fought Phil Davis, who's a Division I national champion. He fought in the UFC. We actually fought each other in the UFC. But he had the belt, and I got to fight for the belt, 205-pound belt, my first fight in Bellator. So I ended up beating him, won the belt, defended the belt, and then I got asked if I wanted to be in a heavyweight tournament. And my coach was always telling me, like, hey, you should try heavyweight. I think you'd be really good. It was an unknown for me. I'm like, are these guys way too big, too strong? It was just an unknown. I'm doing fine at 205.
Yeah. What's the weight difference?
Yeah, I was like, yeah, I want to be in this tournament. I didn't know anybody they had no names yet. Then it started filling out. You had Fedor, Rampage, Chael Sonnen, Frank Mir, goes down the line, Matt McKeown. So I'm like, well, here it goes. I'm like, it was just kind of like, okay, whatever happens, happens, right? It's not my weight class, whatever.
Yeah.
So go out, I knock out King Mo in like 13 seconds, and then fight a true heavyweight in Matt Mitrione, and just kind of put on a wrestling clinic, had a bunch of 10-8 rounds, all that kind of stuff, beat him up pretty bad. And then it comes down to Fedor and I in the finals.
Man.
If you don't know Fedor, he's like the GOAT of MMA, Russian, no expression, scary dude. And one thing about that too is our contract was up. Again, it was our last fight. And we tried to negotiate before that. And they gave us a really good contract, but we felt like we could do better. And so we just bet on ourselves again.
Burn the ships again,
right?
Yeah.
And if I went out there and lost, I'd probably have to take less than what they were offering me that first time, So we go out there and I'm standing across. I'm like, holy shit, that's Fedor. But then I go back and go, remember, we're not putting the pussy on a pedestal. We talked about this the whole time. It's just another man on one night, right? I'm like, we can beat this dude. And so we went out and he has like a blitz. If you get in his zone, he's coming hard. And so I was trying to find that line, and I could tell by his facial expression, he was kind of tensing up and twitching, ready to go. I'm like, all right, that's the line. So I went in there. I did that feint we were talking about. He put his hands down and kind of went out to his right, and I caught him with a hook and ended up knocking him out in like 35 seconds.
No way.
Yeah, and so then, I had the 205-pound belt, and that was for the heavyweight championship. So I had that belt, and then I had a tournament Grand Prix belt, standing there, 3 belts, like, okay, beautiful family in the cage, wife.
Yeah.
And then I thought I'd enjoy that moment more, but I was like, okay, cool. What's next?
Crazy, huh?
Yeah, it's
insane.
A weird deal.
Yeah, it's insane. I talked to Bo Nickel. He was here at our Tough Fest event a couple weeks ago, and he said the exact same thing. And I mean, you hear it over and over again that like we can put winning in accomplishments on a pedestal and then get there and have that empty feeling, which is pretty mind blowing.
Yeah, you think because you build it up so much, and with MMA, you're always thinking about a future date, opponent, and all that. And you're like, a lot of it's like, I can't wait to get that over with, would accomplish it, whatever. I'm going to feel so good. All the pressure's going to be off, this and that. Then when it happens, you're like you kind of just build it up in your head. Like it's something bigger, right? Then when it happens and it's over, you're like, well, all right, what am I going to do now? What's next? And I think it's a good thing, but it's something that I know in my life, if I don't have that, a future date to look forward to, when I'm done fighting, like I'll have to find something that fulfills that. Otherwise, I'm going to go crazy.
Yeah, we're wired to accomplish that next mission.
Yep. Have goals, go out there, put in the work to achieve them, get that one done. All right, what's the next one?
The mind game of a fighter is so fascinating, and you kind of mentioned it a little bit, where you knew in the locker room before that big loss that your head wasn't quite right. Did you really start dialing into that, like mentally, where you're at before every single fight?
Yeah, definitely, because the nerves are going to be there, and the day of for me is hard, right? So you're like, just hurry up and wait. You're there all day, and in the hotel room thinking about, all right, at 10 p.m. we're leaving the arena, and so trying to keep my emotions in check then. And once I start warming up in the locker room, I'm good. But I just go through not a checklist, but in my head, I'm like, all right, you always feel this way. You always get nervous before competition, whatever you have since you're a kid. That's normal. All right. don't beat yourself, right? Be present out there. It might get hard. You're going to be fine. That's where I know that's where I excel. A lot of it,
Mm-hmm.
my wins are because I just kept going. And then me and my coach, he'd make me sit down. He'd make me like smile, right? Even if it's fake, he's like, force a
Shake
smile,
some
put your
nerves.
body in a
Yeah.
different, like, we're out here having fun. And I'm like, not too many people get to experience this feeling, and
Mm-hmm.
we're going out there doing it in front of a crowd. It's a cool thing we're doing. Don't make it bigger than what it is. And then what's weird is like right before you're about to fight out or walk out to the fight, I'm like, why don't I feel more?
Uh-huh.
It's almost like everything
Yeah.
is calm. I was like, why was I freaking out today? And you go out there and do your thing. The bell rings, you're just in it. And then it's always a big relief afterwards for sure.
Was there a mental change between fighting without a wife and kids and fighting with a wife and family?
Um, Honestly, not too much for me.
Mm-hmm.
I just look at it like competition, and I have, I think, 43 fights, and it just something I do. I go out there, it's a job, get it done. I love preparing for it. I
Yeah.
love winning, and so um, I just kind of look at I'm not going out there, I might get hurt. It's a fight, it's a competition. We both trained. We're both putting our skills on the line and see who's better.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's awesome. And it's awesome. I think before we hit record on the podcast, we were talking about the movie you're working on now.
Yeah.
And after hearing your life story and then tying it to that, it is pretty insane. It's like so fun to look at life in hindsight because
Hmm.
it feels so much different in the moment. But like 110%, you would have never even been close to the opportunities you've had and will continue to have if you hadn't made that really hard decision after college.
Oh, 100%. Like going to the movie deal, you know, character, well, I can say the character, is out there and playing Mark Coleman. It's the Smashing Machine movie. Um,
Mm-hmm.
And it's a true story, and it's a documentary in 2002, and I would urge everybody to go watch the documentary if you can find it. It's called The Smashing Machine. They just started following a fighter, Mark Kerr. He was they called him the Smashing Machine. He was national champion. He was a wrestler. He came in, started smashing people. Big huge dude, jacked out of his mind.
Mm-hmm.
And so this film crew started following him just on the fact that, like, oh, he might be the next big thing. They filmed him doing Vale Tudo with headbutts and eye gouges back in Brazil, coming to UFC and Pride. But little did they know he had a lot of problems, opiate problems. He's had a guy that had a little pipeline from Mexico bringing him in liquid painkillers, shooting up this and that, and they
Mm-hmm.
caught all that, and so his buddy Mark Coleman, who I'm playing, they're he's heavyweight, Mark Kerr's a heavyweight, two wrestlers from same background. They're friends or buddies, but they could be on a collision course to fight each other, and Coleman kind of gets him out of his overdosing, all this kind of stuff, and gets him back on his feet. They enter a tournament at the end. Kerr loses. Coleman, and they were supposed to fight the next round. Coleman goes on to win the whole thing. But so it's an MMA movie, right? So I kind of look like Coleman. I'm a wrestler, same background. I fight MMA. So I
Yeah.
get a random text. I was like, hey, I have a question about this MMA film. And that could mean a million things to
Anything.
me. I don't know. Who are you? There's no preface in there, nothing. Like, hey, I'm a director. So I blow him.
Yeah.
I keep blowing him off. I try to connect. He can't. Blah blah blah. It's like 3 weeks go by. Finally, he's like, we really need to talk. We can. So I'm like, I'm just gonna get this over with. I
Yeah.
talked to him that next week, and he's like, hey, my name's Benny Safdie, and I did Uncut Gems. I'm doing this movie, Smashing Machine. I'm like, oh, I'm aware of the documentary.
Mm-hmm.
And he was all excited, and he's looking at me in the Zoom call or FaceTime. And he's like, telling me, are you interested? I'm like, yeah, potentially, and I had to go make sure this was all legit and who he was, whatever. And then we just did an audition on Zoom the week after, and never done anything like that before. That's
Never
one thing I was
acted.
like actually really nervous about. I'm like, and then 2 weeks prior to the start of the shoot, he sends me a text. He's like, looking forward to working with you. And then I've been in Vancouver since May, and got back yesterday. So
life is crazy, man.
it's crazy. But then so we're on movie set. Never done that before. Everybody was amazing. It wasn't what I thought it was going to be, and it's for the better, and so The Rock, DJ's playing Mark Kerr. We got Emily Blunt playing the girlfriend. And so, I'm sitting there 2 days in, acting with one of the most popular actors in The Rock and one of the best actors in the world with Emily Blunt,
That's insane.
But I go back to that Fedor moment when I'm like, don't put them on a pedestal, they're just whatever.
Yeah, they're just
humans. So it's been going really good. We still have more filming going on, but it's a cool opportunity, and I got to bring, something authentic to this movie, which are the fights, and make those look as real as possible. And they do.
That's such a good lesson of not putting people up on a pedestal.
Yeah.
We're all humans. We're all making a ton of mistakes. None of us are perfect.
100%.
But we can really psych ourselves out sometimes.
Especially that would be if you're like, what's the most uncomfortable thing you can do? For me, go into a room, with there's probably 50 to 70 people there, lights, cameras, everything, and they're like, all right, we're gonna try one, and you just go.
You were probably more nervous for that than
100%.
for a big fight.
100%. Yeah, but I just kind of go back. I'm like, hey, we're good. You get, you need another shot, another take, you can always do that. But I had the director that was doing that. He's amazing, and he he helped out a lot, and he kind of makes you feel at ease when you're doing it.
Mm-hmm.
He's almost too positive when you're like, Benny, let me know for real if something's not going. If you want to do something different, he's like, nope, got it.
Just optimistic.
Yeah.
How has the work been? Is it like harder work than people think it is? You're working long days, long hours, kind of grinding it out.
Yeah, I mean, you always hear that, and you're like, oh, okay, But yeah, I mean, the last 3 weeks, I'd show up at like 1 p.m., and you're kind of ready to go because I have a lot of makeup because I have tattoos and stuff like that. And he didn't, Coleman didn't have any tattoos. So have an hour and a half of that, and then we get into it. And you think you'd go, all right, we'll start, at our call time or whatever. But I ended up waiting 6 or 7 hours in the trailer, and then you go on set waiting in the green room. And as many times when I got there 1 p.m., we started filming at like 11:30 p.m. So you just got to be ready whenever it happens. And there's been tons of nights where we wrapped at like 3 to 6 a.m.
Yeah.
Go back, get some sleep, come right back. And obviously the fight scenes are physical, and all that. But then there'll be other times when I'm like, hey, I'm cornering Kerr and I'm just standing on concrete for 12 to 14 hours. And that's what gets me. I'm like, why am I so sore? I did nothing, So it's just for me, for, guys like us, it's just hard to wait around.
Yeah.
So you have to get used to that. And that was like the biggest thing that I had to kind of learn to just like accept, like, all right, I'm going to be here for however long I have to be here.
Mm-hmm.
And when my time's up, get it done, we'll go get it done, and I learned it pretty quick, but first week of that was hard for sure.
How has it been working with The Rock?
Yeah, everybody's been great there.
Awesome.
He's got a lot going on, so I usually just see him at the scenes, and he's a guy that can't go out and walk to the grocery store at all or anything like that. He gets absolutely mobbed, so you usually just see him on set there. And he's really good to me, and that's all I care about is for just being cool, real person.
Yeah, that's cool. It's cool the different life journeys that we can get thrown, and it's just so
Insane.
unexpected. You never know.
Yeah.
And I know we skipped a chunk of your career there. You went from like kind of standing there with the 3 belts with that feeling of what's next.
Yeah. Yeah. Went on, like, defended heavyweight belts and all that, ended up losing 205, the light heavyweight belt. And then, just, been fighting 5-round fights since like 2017, title fights,
Dang.
So still rolling. The end is near as far as, because if it was up to me or whatever, I'd probably keep going forever. I am at the top of my game, but, getting older now and there's times where training camp is the hardest part, and your body, little injuries. I've been an athlete my whole life, kind of catch up with you.
Yeah. What does training look like when you're at home?
Yeah, I'm multiple times a day, and we just kind of split it up from, strength training. We'll do wrestling, jiu-jitsu, sparring, MMA, all that kind of stuff.
And are you big on like all the recovery protocols, sauna, cold plunge?
Yeah, I need to get better at that. I do have a cold plunge at my place. Been doing a little more sauna. We actually had a sauna in the hotel in Vancouver, so I was hitting that. It's kind of the first time I actually done a lot of it, and I enjoyed it for sure. My biggest thing is probably like the cold and maybe some contrast therapy, but I need to get better at, stretching, mobility, and stuff like that. But sometimes I have done a lot of that, and my body wants to kind of go back to where it was.
Yeah.
And I'm like, do I leave it, not mess with it? Because it was more sore, for however, like a week.
Yeah.
So that's really the deal. So I'm trying to find that fine line, be on the recovery aspect.
And for your fights, how much weight do you generally cut?
I'm a heavyweight now, so nothing on that. I'm like 235, 240 right now, but I was maybe 5 pounds less. I was like 235 when I was cutting down to 205.
Okay.
And that was tough. But I've done it my whole life, but as I gotten older, last 2 cuts down was miserable.
Dang.
And I didn't perform like I knew I could. And, ego in the way is like, I've done it my whole life. I'm fine. But then I look at those fights at 205, last 2, and I'm like, I didn't look, how I looked in the fight wasn't how I looked 2 days prior. As far as like, I was ripped up, great shape, but I just looked like all that water just kind of under my skin, and just, it just was not good. You can't take shots like you can, when you're fully hydrated and all that either.
Yeah. Yeah, the science of that stuff is pretty wild.
Yeah.
Mountain Tough is the fitness app trusted by the dedicated. Mountain Tough ethos is backed by, we've always wanted to be the best in the world at helping our customers become more mentally tough. So inside the Mountain Tough app, you're not only going to find all of our physical training programs, but you're going to find additional training as well so that you can stay sharp physically, mentally, spiritually, and nutritionally. The Mountain Tough app also allows you to train no matter where you are, anytime, anywhere. Additionally, the Mountain Tough app is going to have programs from beginners all the way up to elite athletes. And all of our programming is structured in a way that you can start with no gear at body weight, and you can go all the way up to programming that is full gear. So you can do that in a robust home gym or your local gym. There's no excuse for you not to start today. With Mountain Tough, you can conquer your goals with the ideal program for your lifestyle and schedule. Train with equipment or just your body weight on your phone, tablet, TV, or web browser. Most importantly, Mountain Tough will help you train your mindset so you are always ready for anything life throws your way. Mountain Tough is offering the Mountain Tough podcast listeners an incredible offer. 6 weeks free on the Mountain Tough app. All you need to do is use the code MTNPOD to redeem your 6 weeks of training. That'll be a 14-day free trial plus a whole additional 4 weeks of training. Just go to mountaintough.com and enter code MTNPOD for your 6 weeks free on the best-in-class physical and mental training app. Listening to the Mountain Tough podcast. And so through this whole season of, going professional, starting a family, hunting has kind of been a theme behind the scenes the entire time.
Yeah.
For you?
Yeah. In college, I kind of took some time off because we were traveling every weekend during, the fall season, but I grew up hunting, went on all the sheep hunts. I never got a sheep tag, but my dad, grandpa, uncle, all that kind of stuff. And we were in Reno, Nevada. Nevada's a great place, for hunting. And then came down to Arizona, and Arizona's the same, and big part, of what I love to do and passion is hunting for sure. And so, we can draw tags down here. Not the best tags, but we put in the hard work, and especially the deer tags.
Yeah.
And so got my kids into hunting. My oldest is super into it. He shot a couple of deer, and he has a good elk tag in unit 23 down here. So late.
Nice.
It's a late hunt, but it's big bulls in there. And then
That's
I'm on
cool.
the board for this organization called Outdoor Experience for All. Basically, we get tags that are turned back in. In Arizona, it's all lottery. Can't buy tags. And so those ones that are turned back in, they don't like the year, it's a drought year, they have a wedding, and they have a bunch of bonus points, knowing they're going to draw next year. They turn it back in, and they can go to an organization like ours, so we can hand them out to disabled vets. And so I've been doing that the last 4 or 5 years, taking some disabled vets out, on bull hunts in September, deer hunts, all that kind of stuff. And it's been super cool for sure. Last year we took out Terry Hewen, legendary, Team 6 dude.
Yeah.
Another SEAL. I think we took out 400 vets last year.
That's incredible.
Yeah. And so all of those have become good friends, not 400, but the ones I've taken out, we're good friends now, and it's great for them to, come in to a new spot, meet like-minded people. We have a little mission, which is, go put an arrow in an elk and be out there, with the boys, have that camaraderie and be able to look forward to that next year, like, hey, we'll have a tag. I don't know how great it'll be. We'll get the tag next year,
Man, you probably see some pretty cool life change moments on those trips, especially
100%.
especially for a veteran who hasn't had the chance to do much hunting at all.
Yeah, that's a big thing, right? A lot of them love to hunt, but they don't have the time to hunt, so when they get out, they're like, okay, I want to start hunting, but I guess you can buy tags in, some states here and there. They're putting in for the draw, it's for us to be able to be like, hey, we got a tag. And how it usually works, I hit up a couple vets, and they're kind of last minute sometimes. Like, I got this tag. Anybody want to is anybody available? Basically, some aren't, and then some are just waiting. They're like, I'm in.
Yeah,
I'll be there Tuesday. So
that's amazing.
Yeah, it's cool.
That's super cool. You're doing that. So you've lived a big dynamic life. What do you typically tell men, especially that are kind of like struggling with complacency or passivity, or are kind of like stuck in those jobs they hate?
That's a hard one, right? Because we're kind of talking about that. You can tell somebody, or you can have somebody tell you like, oh, you just gotta find your passion and just take the leap of faith. And they're like,
Mm-hmm.
cool, but I have a mortgage and I have this and that, and I have kids and I can't,
Yeah.
and that's the hardest part, right? And they're like, yeah, I have my passion, but how do I monetize that? Because ultimately I need money, to provide for my family.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know, it's tough for me with a guy like that like, hey, I'm gonna stay in this job. It's like find passions outside of your job, and you know, best you can try to have a positive attitude, and make the best of it. And you know, I think working out, which a lot of people I see don't do at all,
Mm-hmm.
is a huge part of it. I know it's intimidating. I'll go join a jiu-jitsu gym,
Yeah.
and I guarantee you that's going to become a passion, and you're going to get
Mm-hmm.
around like-minded people, and people are there to help. You're going to make lifelong friends, and that can give you a purpose, because that's my whole deal. I need a purpose, right? And I feel like a lot of people, especially if they have a job that they don't really have to, I mean, they just show up and do their job and can't wait to leave. Like, you don't have a purpose there. I guess your purpose
Mm-hmm.
is just make a little money to, provide for your family. But what's
Yeah.
your like true purpose in life? Is it, it could be, like I said, going into and getting better at BJJ, and then going, hey, I think I want to go to a tournament,
Mm-hmm.
and you get that excitement, you get that, like, there's a goal. You got to do something for yourself outside of that, you know. And I know a lot of people, they just go, all right, get to my job, go drinking on Friday and Saturday, Sunday recover, get ready to do it again.
Yeah.
All I'm looking forward to is that Friday happy hour. Get through this week. You need to have other stuff outside of that for sure. And for
Yeah.
me,
It's amazing.
a lot of people, it's working out. It could be go to a boxing gym, go to whatever, jiu-jitsu. And for me too, it's the hunting deal, my own
Mm-hmm.
hunts, and the hunts with the disabled vets. That's a big passion of mine, and it's super rewarding for me. And I've met a ton of good friends because of that.
Yeah, that service component, that fitness component, that being outside. It's
Mhm.
amazing the power of someone going into a jujitsu gym and having their life completely changed. At Mountain Tough, all the time we talk about, like, hey man, if you're struggling, just leave your phone at home and go in the backcountry for 3 days
Yeah,
and camp out. Like, I guarantee you'll come back another human. And BJJ is the same. Like, hey, if you're struggling, just go sign up. Like, I
yeah.
guarantee you your life will change.
I just remember so last year I was up in Wyoming, and we did like a 6 day, 5 or 6 days up there, with my brother-in-law. We were just everything on our back. We were up in Wyoming range and 10,000 feet camping, just moving camp every day, standing
Hmm.
on the top, glassing, and you're like, this is really freaking cool, and then
Yeah.
like my brother-in-law's over there, and I'm thinking, I'm like, hell yeah, there's not too many other people that would do this with me. And
Uh,
that's something like you just said, if you brought somebody up there, they would think the same and be like, this is amazing. Like, how have I not
yeah.
done this before? You know,
It's
it changed their life,
changes your whole perspective.
but there's
Yeah.
very few people that are willing to do that.
Hmm. Dude, I saw the videos of the pranks you pull on your brother-in-law all the time.
Yeah.
So they're so funny.
Yeah. That's where I get to the point where I was taking it pretty far, where I'm like, how can I one up this? I'm going to have to shoot him with a 22 in the leg or something.
No. Yeah, you're taking him pretty far. When he was going to breathe on that bench press, and he
Oh,
said the
yeah.
ground.
Yeah, I was just messing around one time, and then people were like, we need more pranks. We need more pranks. And then, yeah, it got to the point where I'm like, all right, what's the next one? I need to bring those back though.
It's cool though, because it's like all connected to that. Just have a positive mindset, have fun with what you're doing. Even if you're working out hard, you can still make it positive and enjoyable.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, I just think everybody needs to do something hard, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And that's like the way we grew up. We had that every day, throughout our whole life. And then we just kind of continued on because that's what we know.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a lot of people, especially this day and age, they've never done anything hard. And then you have your cell phone, you have, social media where they're like, oh, they're on that all day, just looking to, post something like, oh, I'm doing this, whatever, cool, I'm around this person, or like, go out and
Yeah.
do something hard. You
Yeah.
know, nobody has that anymore. Very few people have that. I think, obviously, military community, the hunting community, MMA community, we know what that's about. But your average
Mm-hmm.
day man in today's day and age doesn't. And I think
Yeah.
that's what is missing.
Yeah. And then when they do run into something hard, it's a complete meltdown because they
Yeah,
haven't built that core.
exactly. We're all going to go through tough times or whatever it is in our life. If you've never been there before, you can't handle it. You don't know how to
Mm-hmm.
react. You just melt down.
How are you passing down some mental toughness to your kids now?
Yeah, I try to take them. Well, one thing is like I take them to do what I'm doing, you know, and it's a tricky thing these days with kids. As far as like, as a parent, you're like, oh, I'm not gonna let my kids have an iPad, this and that. I was like,
Yeah.
good luck. They can do a little bit of that, whatever. But I take them on hunts, hikes. We got a place in Payson, which is hour and a half away from here. It's like 20 degrees cooler. It's in the mountains, and we'll do a bunch of stuff. And they come to me now where it's almost like, and I'm always going to say yes, but they're like, let's go shooting, let's go fishing, let's go that. And sometimes they're
Yeah.
like, I had a tough week. I just want to chill for like 2 hours. But that's awesome. And you're like
You gotta
100%,
do it.
let's go.
Yeah.
My oldest son, my other two are just now the age where they can start hunting in Arizona. But my oldest son, I mean, we've taken on hunts, and I've taken him on one of the vet hunts, and I've taken him, on his own hunts where it got hard, and
Mm-hmm.
he's carrying his little deer quarter, little coos deer, so it wasn't too bad. But and we're hiking in nasty little hike and wash, going through, cat claw and all that kind of stuff. And he's scraped up. He's like, oh, I'm scraped up. I'm like, you're good. So am I. Look at my hands. We're good. It's just kind of, you know, having them follow you around and setting a good example on how you
Mm-hmm.
should act, how you can live life, and so I think that's the biggest part with kids. Like you can tell them all day, but you got to show them
Yeah. You gotta lead by example.
100%. That's how I was
Man.
raised, and I wouldn't. Yeah, it was hard, um, but I wouldn't have it in any other way. I think it made
Mm-hmm.
me the person I am today.
Yeah. Yeah. People are counting on us. I mean, they're counting on us and they're watching everything that we do. But,
Yep.
for parents out there, that whole family is counting on you and there's generational impacts. But the biggest thing is leading by example. And, non-parents, there's so many people counting on us. If you just think about like your friends and your community,
Yep.
and so much of it is around doing the hard work so that when hard moments come, you can perform and execute because
Oh,
it
100%.
matters.
Yeah, and I've been around the opposite too.
Mm-hmm.
I really don't have time for it.
Yeah.
Like, hey, you can fix it. It's pretty simple, or you just feel sorry for yourself and for me.
Mm-hmm.
Why? Because you've been doing that since you were a kid and you were enabled, you know?
The habits.
Yeah.
Man, well, thanks so much. It's been awesome connecting with you. I love what you're up to, and it's really cool to hear that the story about the disabled vet hunt and those passion projects and that service project. It's awesome.
No, it's one of my favorite things to do. And like I said, I met tons of good people. And, for me too, I'm like, when did I become like a mini therapist too? When I'm like, I feel like I have some good advice, but I've, from those hunts and those vets, I've become good friends, and maybe like marriage questions, this and that. And I'm just trying to help them out and let them know they can talk to me at least whenever they going through something or whatever. And that's happened a bunch, and it just, for me, it's super rewarding going out there. And, and 2 years ago, we had four elk tags, and we had a Vietnam vet amputee. We had a SEAL Team 6 dude. We had a one-eyed nun that was attached to the Marines, got blown up.
Crazy.
And we had a Navy girl, and so it was the whole gamut, military experience. And, I usually cook dinner for them and stuff, and we'll have a few drinks if they want. And the nun was like, "Hey, can I have some of that bourbon?" I was like, "Hell yeah, you can have as much as you want." And we go out hunting, and I had my hand on her backpack, and we were going through these grassy, and you can't see the rocks, they'll fall off. So I get down, I have her backpack. My buddy was like, "Ryan, snake is right between her legs." She's
no way.
Snakes, a rattlesnake. She starts falling into it. So I just pick her up and chuck her, throw her back. So I fall down, and we're looking for, like, she's hysterical. I'm like, looking for like bites or whatever. She ends up being good. And my whole deal is like, I don't want to push her too hard. Nasty country. And so I'm like, "Are you right? Are you all right?" After that, we get up there. It's like 11. We're glassing around, trying to find this bull. And then it's like 11:30. It's pretty much done. So I was glassing, and we're just having a little picnic at that point, about ready to go back. And I see this bull. And mind you, she missed a bull at she couldn't see this bull at 30 yards. We were like right on him. This is rifle hunt too. And rifle. And then anyway, this one's at 500 yards. So my rifle, I got to get set up. I'm like, 500 yards, we can't get any closer. Do you want to take a stab at it? And she's like, yeah. She kills herself, 500 yards.
No way.
So we get her over there, we're cleaning out the elk, and then I hear her, she was like, oh, saying something. The guy, the SEAL dude was like, "You all right?" It's like, "Oh, I think I just had a seizure." I'm like, "What the?" She's like, "Oh, it happens sometimes." We're like, no. So I feel off and radio. One of the cowboys is like, "Hey, we need a horse up here," and we put her on a horse. We get her back. We haul out her elk, and she's sitting on this dirt road. I'm like, "Oh, she's never going to do this again." Show up. She's drinking a White Claw. And her name's Cece. I'm like, "Cece, you having a good time?" She's like, "This is the best day of my life."
No way.
And she had a blast, And so, I mean, just the adventure that comes with that, and the adventure that they get, camaraderie and all that. It's definitely the most rewarding thing that, I can do.
Man, that's so cool, because it just highlights that, like, these crazier adventures, even though crazy, weird, dangerous things happen, is what life is all about, and people get to experience that on even a few day elk hunt.
100%.
That's what we all want.
And it's one of those deals, especially on hunts like that, is like, it might be terrible. It might be raining. It's muddy, and you're hiking your ass off. But it's terrible during that time. And then 4 days later, you're like, that was the best time ever.
I know. Yeah, you don't remember the pain at all.
No.
That's awesome.
So I think everybody needs a little bit of that in their life.
Love it.
Yep.
Well, keep crushing it, man. We're excited to see the movie come out. Can't wait to watch it either.
Yeah, keep crushing it yourself, guys. You're doing a good thing, and you're actually doing something that we were just talking about, trying to get people out there in shape, get their mind right and all that. So kudos to you guys too.
Thanks, man. Appreciate you.
Appreciate it, buddy. We'll talk soon.
Thanks. Thanks, man. That was awesome. Thanks for listening, everyone. I hope you enjoyed that episode as much as I did. Remember, every episode we're looking for those golden nuggets. What can you take away? What can you apply to your life tomorrow? What's the practical thing you can apply to your life today, this week, this month? We're looking for those every single episode. Each and every one of us is going to have a different golden nugget. Make sure you're pulling away practical tips from these inspiring guests. My golden nugget today for sure from Ryan is the burn the ships. We talk about that all the time. Michael Easter talks about that all the time. At Mountain Tough, we're always talking about burning the ships. Burning the ships is what created Mountain Tough. It was go back to corporate America for me, or it was burn the ships and follow my heart and doing what my heart was telling me to do. That's a big, big golden nugget. And Ryan dove into that where he was able to burn the ships, which was a risky endeavor, and fight for literally pennies just to get his career off the ground. But look at what it has led to today for him. It led him down that path he was supposed to be on, not following what the world is seducing us to do. I hope you guys enjoyed that. I can't wait to show you next week's episode. Stay tuned for that. If you want to learn more about Mountain Tough, make sure you are subscribed to us on YouTube as well at Mountain Tough Fitness Lab. Love you guys, and we'll see you next time. Thanks for listening to the Mountain Tough Podcast. We'll see you next week.